Welcome everyone. It's the top of the hour. It's 4 p.m. in the UK. Hope you're all comfortable. Welcome to this session on integrated ecosystems and how we can bring learning and performance and engagement together to better service in the workplace. I hope you're all comfortable, presumably at home. You'll see me. I'm here in a home office, makeshift office. I guess things are all really different for us right now, and I think a lot of the lessons and thoughts and insights I'm going to share now feel even more prescient now that we find ourselves dealing with these unprecedented times and having been forced to sort of shift our work patterns around. So I hope everyone can hear me fine. Do say in the chat if there's any issues or problems with things, but otherwise I'll crack ahead and start the session. So what I'm going to cover over the next few minutes is why people matter. I think it should be fairly self-explanatory, but the trends around HR strategy and how us as people working together in organisations is really critical to success. And I think we're seeing that even more today than at any other time, in that we've had to really regroup, really think differently about how we operate and cooperate and collaborate together. And the fact that technology is pretty much our only means of being able to communicate and cooperate and get things done effectively, we've really shifted and tipped, it feels, into another mode of operation. Now, all of this affects how we feel and how we feel motivated, and that all affects our ability to perform in work. So I'm going to look a little bit more as well at the underlying motivators that really drive us in the workplace, and then explore how a more integrated approach to supporting our learning performance activities as well, and how we stay engaged and stay motivated in the workplace can be better supported by an integrated ecosystem or technology platform. And typically, I say typically, I think increasingly an open technology is the way forward. It offers increasing levels of flexibility and supports a more rapid innovation cycle that I think we can all agree is something that those organizations that are already well placed to respond to unprecedented and unexpected volatile events like we're experiencing now are in a much stronger place than those who are perhaps not. And I think we're seeing that division really clearly now, really starkly. So why do people matter? I mean, clearly they do. We all do. We come together as organizations and we work together. The way in which we're working is increasingly driven by technology. It's complex work and it's interdependent with each other. And I think as we now are dialoguing like this on a webinar, we're also communicating on a day-to-day basis with each other via similar technologies all of the time. So we need to be skilled at using the technology. We need to be able to operate increasingly sophisticated processes and methods, and the way in which we engage and get things done is really rooted in collaboration. So it's very much interdependent. As we roll forward, and I think the times we now currently live in with the advent of the virus, we're seeing many industry sectors, I guess, being forced to make decisions that they were probably contemplating around their use of technology to transform their organizational structures into one that was sort of tech mediated primarily. That level of automation, that move to online, say for retail, has only just been exacerbated and become much more extreme. It's hard to imagine that we'll move back to the way it was fully. I think some key experiences that we're having now will mean it will change the way we work fundamentally going forward. and that the anticipated wave of automation will only accelerate, particularly in many of the sectors that I think we will operate and work in. And that will demand us to develop new skills, to be reskilled in quite significant ways. And I think we're going to see, many staff, depending on where you are in the world, we're seeing people out of work, being furloughed. They'll be coming back into roles, but those roles may well be under review in terms of what you're going to be doing and the typical competencies and skills that you're going to need to operate and be successful. So this is very imminent, I think, over the next 12, 18 months. We're going to see that really come through. So let's have a look at how people's strategy and the way we look at it has sort of changed over the past decade or so. When you look at what you might call legacy HR, there's a list there of a number of terms that you could perhaps use to describe that. Typically a bit more command and control. We sort of think about annual reviews and annual appraisals. We talk about training people, i.e. that's sort of put on people as opposed to sort of bottom up and sort of self-directed types of learning. It's more transactional. It's focused on how do we support our people, but then at the top table, typically you too often hear the question, why is HR here? What is it for? Now, it plays a critical role in any organization, that's clear, but the language and the views of how organizations are structured and how we work together has evolved quite considerably over this past decade, and sort of leading organizations tend to be structured and to be a little bit more decentralized and in their ways, and also search to empower their people. They're looking to be more agile. They're looking to constantly look for feedback from each other and have means by which they can continuously gather that and act on it. That they recognize that learning is continuous. It always has been. It's something that we all do. It's not always formal. It can be informal. And how do we support that better in the workplace? How do we partner with each other? And that's really alluding to the need to feel that we can collaborate smoothly and in friction-free ways, and sort of break through, I guess, the typical silos that we might find ourselves working in more traditional organizations, and to shift that question from why is HR here to why isn't HR here. These sets of this type of language is actually shared on a site down here. You'll see a link. It's hros.co. I'd encourage you to take a look in there. There's a open source. It's HR open source is what it stands for, and there's a whole wealth of sharing of guidelines and templates, etc. There's lots of good case studies in there as well that people are sharing best practice and good practice. So do take a look at that if you have a moment. Now, a lot of the HR wider changes are clearly influencing the world of learning and learning technology. This is very much at the heart of TOTRA and what we offer and how we operate. And many of you will already be familiar with our products and how they work. Now, I think it's fair to say that the status quo, or the way things perhaps do currently work, but certainly are changing, is that we need to be more open and we need to be more flexible, and that freedom is really at the center of what I would characterize as a new normal. Now, I used that new normal phrase some time ago. In fact, actually back in 2017, I wrote an article about characterizing what I called the reinvention economy, and that reinvention economy was demanding, if you like, what I'm characterizing here is a need to be more to be able to respond to an uncertain and volatile world, and to do that you need extra flexibility. And it feels very prescient now that we're right in that world, and many organizations will find themselves not as agile as they would have liked to have hoped to be, and not in a position to be able to respond as effectively as they could have done if they'd um, made better plans around this. But moving away from just in case type learning, too much reliance on generic solutions, and thinking more about personalizing the learning experience, being more proactive, demand-led about the learning that you're offering, and shifting the way technology and other means of delivery of learning, how you're investing in that. Instead, moving away from a typical cycle, or too often you see it, where technology is bought, maybe for the wrong reasons, with the wrong specs, or maybe the right specs for the time which your business is looking, but not with an eye on the future, where things will be changing within, say, 6 months, or a year, or increasingly now probably every 3 months, or even every week, it feels like these days. So moving away from that model of invest and stagnate to one where we're investing and adapting as we go. So you're keeping and evolving and developing, and you have the freedom and control to be able to do that. And what that means is you move away from that stop, start again buying cycle, procurement cycle, which is quite wasteful, to one where you're really enjoying cumulative benefits. You're constantly improving, you're continuously improving the way in which you'll be able to support the learning of your people across your organization and beyond. Now, what we're seeing here is, I think, a reckoning, I suppose, right now, where organizations that have already, I think, addressed their legacy practices are probably in better shape to respond to these unprecedented times than those who haven't. But there has been a long-standing, I guess, view, and it's been shared by consultancies such as Deloitte. This I'm picking on one particular trends report from 2017 as well, that really called out that if you're going to change, you need to address those legacy practices. They need to be confronted and they need to be discarded, i.e. they need to be changed quite fundamentally. And I think we're really experiencing that right now, where decision making has been shortcut. People have jumped into very fresh ways of doing things and experimenting on the fly, I guess, right now. And becoming more digital, and that is affecting all sectors, not just information or technology oriented businesses as it stands, but even sectors that are typically manufacturing oriented. 3D printing, for example, turns that into an information sector, a driven sector. Equally, healthcare and the generation of drugs, a lot of that is now very much IT and information generated, increasingly so. And the speed at which that's happening is unprecedented as well. So being able to move fast and adapt quickly is really essential to being a successful organization and thriving in the future. So what does that mean? It means that the businesses that you are in require technology that is open and flexible and able to really absorb change. Without that, you become quite brittle, and it's quite easy to see. And I think we are seeing it in many cases, in the extreme right now, to be fair, where that's not the case. It's really causing major challenges for some organizations. Now, let's have another look at some wider trends that I think do influence how we support our people going forward in organizations as we hopefully emerge into more stable times. Now, this report or survey from Mercer is quite an interesting one. It's quite a sizable sample size. 7,000 business and HR leaders were polled on this, and I picked out 3 sort of conclusions or recommendations that came from it. It's really important that people are in roles which are clearly aligned with higher value creation. And what that means is, are they in jobs that are really clearly adding value to the organization's bottom line, obviously, but also the sort of future direction and where that organization needs to be in its activities. And many people are actually in roles where it's not so clear that they are adding that higher value. So there is going to be increased pressure, and we're seeing it right now, very strong pressure, unavoidable pressure to rethink what those job roles are and align them around those higher value creation activities. And that means reskilling, and that means reskilling at scale. We're obviously seeing people tumbling out of organizations into a larger pot of people, and there's going to be an increasing pressure, I think, or need to help those people come back into the workplace with fresh skills. And technology plays a really crucial part in making that as efficient, as effective as possible. Now, for those people who are fortunate enough or prescient enough to have the skills that organizations do need in a digital-first economy, those are regarded as talent, and they are in short supply right now. So it's important that the work environment that an organization offers is as attractive as possible. And that means this concept of curating the work experience for those coming into your organization is quite crucial. And it means that their work environment needs to be friction-free, shall we say. So the right tools, the right processes, that you're making their work simple and intuitive, that they're free to express their skills and apply their their brains and intellect and brawn, I suppose, as well, to get things done well and consistently. And that also means allowing or enabling that talent to feel like they can adapt and contribute to that working environment and help redesign it, the structures, how people work. This essence of co-creation and collaboration and self-support is really lies at the center of being a dynamic and agile workplace. And it really lies at the heart as well at the ability for organizations to continue to innovate at the pace and in the right direction to enable the organization to thrive going forward. So talent-led change, enabling that and really tapping into that is a really crucial part of the role of HR going forward. Here's another even larger survey. This is conducted by Slack. Many of you will know that that's a communications tool, very popular. Other ones include Microsoft Teams, increasingly being used in many large enterprises, large and small. They surveyed 17,000 knowledge workers, managers, and executives, and I guess they found something that you might think is fairly common sense or intuitive, but it's borne out by their evidence that aligned workers, and by aligned workers we mean those who feel connected to the company's vision, they're clear about it, and the strategy that company's following, that they do approach their work with more optimism, they've got clear purpose around it, and they feel like they can take action, they feel empowered to do that. Conversely, unaligned workers, they're not that connected, they're not clear about what the strategic objectives are of the organization, and could well be pessimistic about the future. I mean, right now that could be a particular challenge for us all, but where we work in silos or the organizational structure doesn't allow for cross communication, there can be that can lead to a slow response to unexpected events, and make it difficult to think differently and innovate out of what can be quite challenging times like the ones we're experiencing right now. So aligning your staff is really crucial, and so that's quite the sort of helicopter view, looking from the organizational perspective. Now this slide here dives right down to the sort of micro level, and that's looking at what this is really all about, what learning's about, what communication is about, which is influencing our behaviors in the workplace, and how do we influence that in a positive way, so that we're developing skills, that we're communicating effectively, and we can sort of build a level of engagement collectively. So I'd point you at the website here, behaviourmodel.org. The Professor Fogg, as he is known, has a model, the behavior model. It's quite simple in many regards, but it summarizes the three things that underpin any behavior that we have. So any action that you think to do, or I guess would intend to take, needs a motivation. You need to be motivated to do it. Clearly, you need the ability to do it, and very often you need a prompt to do that. So that prompt might be an explicit prompt, something telling you to do it. It might be environmental, just in the space that you're occupying, that prompts you to take those actions. So a motivation, an ability, and a prompt. Now, if one of those are missing, then there's typically that behavior won't manifest itself. It won't happen. So if you're not motivated to do some particular task, or motivated to go for that run, say, then you won't do it. If you don't really have the ability, you won't be able to run that fast, you won't be enjoying the benefits of it. And equally, if you forget to do it, or there's not a clear prompt to do it, or it's not habituated into your natural day, then again it won't happen. So it's really quite critical to sort of bear this in mind when we're designing any learning or any communications campaign type structures, or activities or content. Are we addressing the motivation? Are we clear about that people are building the abilities that they need to do that, and are we prompting them in the right way? The technology platforms that we have need to be able to address this in more direct fashion. So another way of looking at this is thinking again about what motivates us. And I'll point you at a book that's about 10 years old now, actually, from Daniel Pink. It's called Drive. It's called, it's looking at what motivates us in the workplace in particular. And it's summarized as three key things. And they sort of map a little bit to the micro level. This is a more macro level when it comes to us all working together, as in individuals and groups of people working together. So mastery, well, we want to be good at what we do, and that's really the urge to be better, or to get better and better at something that matters to us. So whatever those skills are, it's tapping into that is one of those primary motivations that we have. Autonomy, we want to be able to express ourselves. We want to have the freedom to take, as it says, direct our own lives, but we want to be able to show initiative and to work in an environment, I think, that allows us to demonstrate that initiative without fear. So psychological safety is quite critical here. And that that when we are at work and when we are working with others, that we have a sense of shared purpose. We have some belief in what we're doing and why we're doing it, and that it's something beyond our actual individual motivations or sense of purpose. And sharing in that is really quite critical. So mastery, autonomy, and purpose, those three things really do underpin how or whether we perform effectively as a group or collaboratively in an organization, and effectively. If you want to dive into the actual theory behind it, it's called the self-determination theory, and it relates to three psychological needs, and that's largely what Daniel Pink, I think, more readily summarized in this book, or more easily consumed form. But it's definitely worth re-looking at, because it feels very, very prescient now, and it's something that we do all need to, I think, act on when we're supporting our people. So if we bring those three things together, and then compare to what happens in most organizations, mastery, learning, supporting learning in the workplace, performance in the workplace, so linking the direction, the company goals, the purpose of an organization, engaging people so that they feel free to express themselves and safe in doing so and being able to contribute and show initiative. They all interlink. All of these things do interlink. However, learning and performance and engagement too often are different things managed by different people inside the typical organization, and we're missing something there. But bringing them together and enabling us to work or to support these three activities in a more integrated fashion, it's a bit like having three legs of a stool. If one's missing, then the stool falls over. And too often, you may well find that. You may have excellent learning programs, but if you've got a disengaged workforce, it's unlikely to manifest itself in productivity and performance. If you've got a very locked down management culture, it may lead to dissatisfaction and demotivation. Equally, if you're highly engaged and learning, you lack the skills in the right place, you may have a lot of activity achieving very little. So getting that balance right is really what we're all trying to strive for. And having a common architecture to that is, I think, the way forward for many organizations in the future or near future. So learning, engagement, performance, mastering new skills, aligning people around corporate goals, offering peer-to-peer collaboration is really, really important. And then being able to direct, but also support high performance is through continuous feedback, and developing a coach-mentor culture, which is typically the direction that succeeds with this more integrated model, is where we would like us to sort of head to. So at Totra, we're bringing all of this together into a shared platform, a common platform. Many of you will be familiar with Totra Learn. We'll be launching 2 more products, Totra Perform, performance management platform, and Totra Engage, a engagement platform and LXP, together with a supporting mobile app as well. All of this comes together into an integrated ecosystem or platform that will drive more effective learning, that will help improve employee engagement and to improve performance, both at the individual level, the team level, and ultimately influencing company performance overall. This is an exciting year for us all. I'd really encourage you to sort of come into the Totra community and to keep tabs on how we're moving that forward this year. The underlying motivators, the underlying freedoms that that we have of freedom of choice for you as customers, the freedom to innovate, which comes from an open technology, the freedom to invest and build those cumulative benefits, and ultimately save better, achieve better value is really critical. All of that culminates into having the freedom to learn, to perform better, and engage your people more effectively. So we're really excited about how that future can be enabled by that more integrated approach. This is just a summary of where we are at the moment as Totra. We have 1,800 organizations around the world using Totra and 16 odd million users, which it's been fascinating to see right now in times of real challenge out in the world, how people are being able to come together and collaborate and cooperate more effectively. We get quite an interesting insight through our global presence there, and it's been quite humbling in many respects as to how people have really risen to the challenges that we face. Just a little snapshot of some of the organizations that do use us. It's relevant in many sectors, as you can see. We're very proud that the NHS here in the UK is a very strong user of Totra, and we're proud to be playing that part in meeting the challenges that we currently face. So just to summarize then, please do come into the Totra community. We've got thousands of learning professionals in there sharing ideas, and we'd encourage you to come in again and join that debate. If you've got any questions, do get in touch. You can do that via the community, or you can do that directly with the details that are shown on this slide here. And do, if you have a moment, to download the 4 freedoms and have a look at those in a bit more detail. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope that's been of interest, and enjoy your afternoon or your morning, wherever you are in the world, and take care and stay safe. Thank you.